that's where the balance becomes so interesting, because you've got all of this on your plate, and it's about so much more than what's happening right now. It is the sustainability of the club. But on the other side, you have games maybe twice a week, and a fan base who appreciate the numbers and the scoreboard at the end of those 90 minutes. How do you balance the two within the job of chief executive?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. The other thing that was happening at that time, of course, was we'd had Chelsea come into the market before I arrived, actually, with their spending power. So we saw like Ashley Cole, going across to Chelsea. Arsenal was beginning to be the other thing that had happened was Arsene had brought in, so many new ideas into English football. And as I said, people will follow success. So suddenly those new ideas were being copied by everybody else and replicated, overseas players coming in and doing really well, nutrition, all of these new things. So the league was becoming a lot more competitive. We had competitors, as David Dean said, parking their tanks on our lawn and firing 20-pound notes at us. And then we had Manchester City coming in as well. So it became more and more difficult really to compete at the level that we wanted to and that our fans wanted us to, but we were able to maintain a consistent level through that. I think a lot of this is, a lot of the tensions here are tensions. It's a good, healthy tension is between short-term and long-term. There are many things you can do to give yourself a short-term boost or possibility of success, but they come with risk. And so within an organization, you're going to have typically, we had an unusual situation at Arsenal because of Arsene's long tenure, but typically what you'll have is, your coach or your manager who's focused very much on the short term. That's how they're judged week to week, game to game, and they will have the shortest term perspective. Then in a certain model, you'll then have the football director or the technical director or sporting director, whatever you call it, who has, if you like, a medium term, time frame. So he's not the first guy to get fired. He's sort of the second guy to get fired. So he can afford to think, okay, well, it's not just about this week or even this season. I need to think about next season and the season after in the way we're building our contracts, the way we're developing players and giving them opportunities. It's not all about the here and now because I will be judged and, on this medium term. And then the chief executive tends to be the more long-term thinker. He's the one thinking about, well, what happens in 2028, and so not too popular in general, I would say, to be at that end of the spectrum, but it's a necessary role. And if you have the balance right between these different dynamics in terms of long-term, short-term interests, because if you only focus on the long-term, you're also screwed because the short term does matter. It does matter what your relationship is with your fan base and how fans feel. And so achieving that balance is really, really delicate. It's about community. It's about feeling. It's really about self-esteem and pride and those types of very fundamental human emotions. So that's incredibly powerful emotions that you're dealing with. And they're like rocket fuel. If they're firing in the right direction, there's just no feeling better. I've lived that with Milan. The unity, the passion, what you can achieve together when all of those things are lined up is incredible. And it's wonderful to be a part of that. At the same time, you're dealing with rocket fuel every day, so it's extremely explosive. And we have a media as well, which is increasingly, troubled, I would say, and trying to achieve its own business ends through firing up those emotions. And so and social media as well now, of course, has also come in. So it's very, very volatile. Now, what happens in that environment is, I think it's not healthy. It's very dehumanizing. And it ultimately leads to a lot of bad decision making, I would say, in football, and by which I'm not talking about now Arsenal or any particular club. I just mean collectively, it's not providing an environment which gives strategic direction and good stability to football. And then we see lots and lots of problems in football. Clubs that try to compete because of all of that kind of chaotic emotion, and and end up in bankruptcy and so on.